Hello, my name is Claire and I'm a student at the University of New England, currently studying behaviour modification. Today I'd like to invite you to join me in a conversation about onychophagia. I know that was a really big word, so I'll let you know that onychophagia is really just the fancy scientific name for nail biting. Yes, nail biting, a very common habit among both children and adults that's far less mysterious sounding and much easier to pronounce than onychophagia. Nail biting often begins in childhood and is regularly found to be comorbid with a range of psychiatric disorders such as depression, ADHD and OCD, although it is not necessary for you to have ever been diagnosed with any of these conditions to become a nail biter yourself. So what harm is there in nail biting? Actually, more than you might think. Apart from the risk of infection due to excessive biting, there's a risk of permanently deforming and destroying your nail beds. Further problems include dental risks, with biting shown to affect the alignment of your teeth over time. There are also social consequences of nail biting, with biters often feeling the need to hide their habit from others for fear of being stigmatised for their behaviour. Recently, I was able to help a good friend of mine attempt to overcome his habitual nail biting with some simple behaviour modification techniques, and hopefully someone else will find this information as beneficial as he did. Firstly, we came up with an accurate definition of his nail biting behaviour. In this case, we decided that nail biting occurred any time the fingers connected with the teeth in any way, or any time the fingers picked at skin and nails in an effort to find bits to bite. If your biting extends beyond the nails to the cuticles surrounding skin and onto picking skin, then it's important to recognise this in your definition. Next, you need to get a good feel for how much you're actually biting. To do this, you can record just how many times you've found yourself with your hand in your mouth over a week-long period. You can do this with pen and paper, or as my friend did, with a smartphone app. There are plenty of apps available specifically for nail biting, and it makes recording as simple as just pressing a button. This is awareness training. It enables you to see just how much biting you're really doing, as well as helping to pinpoint the times and places that you're most likely to be nibbling at those nails. It's also a good idea to see if you can identify and record any antecedents or triggers during this period. For example, do you find when you feel anxious or nervous or angry or sad is when you're most likely to bite? Or as in the case of my friend, do you just bite when you're bored or inactive, when your hands have nothing better to do? Whatever the case, habit reversal training may help you to decrease your biting. I'm going to show you how we tackled my friend's biting problem, and trust me, it was a big problem, causing bleeding, irritation and at times infection, so he clearly needed to act. After teaching my friend to be more aware of his biting and determining the biting danger zones, which in his case was in front of his desk at work, driving the car, sitting on the lounge watching TV at night, we set about trying to devise some appropriate competing responses that could potentially replace nail biting. So what's a competing response? Basically, a competing response is something that is completely incompatible with the habits you're trying to decrease or eliminate. So with nail biting, we would use a competing response to keep your hands busy, preventing them from ever reaching your mouth. Deciding which competing responses work for you is something that will require a little thought, as you want to make sure that they're easily adaptable in different situations. This will ensure that the responses generalise well across all scenarios. You also want to pick responses that are not overly noticeable to others, as this will help alleviate any awkwardness you feel socially when trying to refrain from biting. Some people can get away with behaviours as simple as clasping their hands together, but my friend likes to run one finger along the other looking for bits to bite, so in his case it wasn't really appropriate to encourage those hands together. So what I decided to give him was this, these, this, and this. What did he do with all of that? First, I gave him 3 squash balls, one for home, one for work, and one for the car. The premise is simple. Play with the ball in your hand, and your hand is too busy to bite. While this is handy to have as a quick fix, we found that the ball was particularly useful when only one hand is free, such as when driving the car. Simply holding the ball in your hand is enough to keep that hand occupied while the other hand is driving. This also works at the computer if you're only using the mouse, but it becomes tricky when you're trying to type. That's where the pens come in. I had my friend lay one pen at each end of his keyboard. That way, he had something accessible every time he stopped typing to just simply reach out and hold. This became very useful and greatly decreased his biting at work. It doesn't have to be a pen. You can use whichever piece of office equipment you prefer, but something like this is a very quick and handy fix to have nearby. Finally, we tackle the lounge, where watching TV almost seemed to invite his fingers into his mouth. As this is a time when both hands are often free, we came up with a few ways to keep them busy. We combined the ball with holding the remote. We combined the remote with a mobile phone. What we found particularly effective in this situation was a game controller. Now, this is not a license to play games at all times. This is simply a license to hold the control. As you can see, this is designed to be held with two hands, and my friend found it quite easy to occupy himself at all times while sitting on the lounge whilst holding one of these. By using everyday items as competing responses, you're setting yourself up for success. If clasping your hands or placing them in your pocket doesn't work for you, it's quite easy to look at your surroundings and spot a few simple items that will potentially keep your hands busy without making anyone around you aware that you're actually fighting off a long-term habit. Some people knit. That's another fabulous way to keep those hands busy. You'll be able to think of plenty of ideas for yourself. The realisation that competing responses lessen the social awkwardness associated with your habit is also cause for motivation. This is important in habit reversal training. If you're feeling more socially comfortable, there's a good chance you'd rather stay that way, so keep that motivation up and keep on using your competing responses. Finally, although you may not want the world to know that you're trying to quit a habit, it's important that you enlist some social support to help remind you to use your competing responses. This can be your family members, close friends, or your partner. You'll find that they'll become your cheerleaders throughout this time, which is great because it's very helpful to have one or two people to help build your motivation and offer you praise and support. Continue recording your nail biting habit as you attempt to use the habit reversal techniques I've described. And if you're implementing the techniques consistently, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to find a huge reduction in your biting, if you're still biting at all. I helped my friend with his nail biting problem. I hope I have helped you too.